Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Gerardo Poli.
And this, oh, sorry. Okay.
One of the best bits of advice I've ever received was to find good mentors and to learn from them. Trusted people who have already done what you're trying to do now. I've been fortunate throughout my career to have some fantastic mentors to help guide me, but I realized that they'd be hard to find and also hard to commit the time to one. This is why we've gathered some of the best minds from the veterinary world and squeezed them for their wisdom so that you don't have to learn the hard way.
With the help of our guests, we flip the veterinary profession on its back and explore its soft underbelly to find the tips, tools, and inspiration that you'll need to build the career that you've always wanted.
I'm Gerardo Poli.
I'm Hubert Hemstra, and this is the VETgirl. Dr. Justine Lee, the one and only VETgirl, is best known for the hugely popular online veterinary education resources that she produces on the VETgirl on the Run website, podcast, and pretty much anywhere that you find your continuing education. Currently, Dr. Lee is one of approximately 450 board-certified veterinary specialists worldwide in emergency and critical care, and she is a diplomate of the American College of Veterinary Emergency and Critical Care. She also is board-certified in toxicology and is a diplomate of the American Board of Toxicology. So just to clarify that, she's a double specialist. She's been published in numerous veterinary journals, books, and has been aired on radio and television to promote preventative medicine, animal health, and the overall well-being of pets.
Justine is the author of 2 humorous pet reference books entitled It's a Dog's Life, But It's Your Carpet, and It's a Cat's World, You Just Live in It. And she has also co-edited and co-authored Blackwell's 5-minute veterinary consult in small animal toxicology. She is also one of the editors of the Veterinary Clinics of North America's small animal textbook on emergency medicine. And she has been a regular recipient of the Speaker of the Year Awards for her talks in emergency and critical care and toxicology. And she was the co-host veterinary analyst on Nat Geo Wild's Animal ER Live. Dr. Lee still works as a criticalist at Animal Emergency and Referral Center, a specialty referral hospital in the Twin Cities, Minnesota.
And because she wasn't quite busy enough 3 years ago, she also became a mom. So how in the world does she do all of this? Join us in our conversation with this whirlwind of efficiency and impact as she shared with us her ideas about career, parenting, money, time management, and much, much more. Please enjoy Dr. Justine Lee. Justine Lee, thank you very much for joining us on the VETgirl, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm honored to be on.
Thank you for coming as well. And it's been a while, actually. In terms of reaching out and touching base, been following your Instagram for a while, and it's great to finally speak to you in person and kind of see you through the camera in the flesh. So you're in gym gear, is that right?
Yes, I'm actually glad it's not video, but that's the benefit of technology. So,
what kind of things do you do at the gym?
So I actually didn't play any sports until I turned 30 because I was too busy nerding out to get into veterinary school. But once I was 30, I started playing on an ultimate frisbee team, which is, I don't know if you guys have it. It's not necessarily worldwide, but sort of like frisbee with a combination of football and basketball and soccer. I play on a women's ice hockey team, and I'm a mid-distance to short-distance runner. So at the gym, I do some high intensity training and only get to do it once a week because of the toddler, but it's my mental health and my escape.
Wow.
Do you do competitive running or just run for fun?
I do some races. Usually I'm actually doing the Twin Cities 10 miler in 2 weeks. So I'll do a couple of 5Ks, 10Ks, 10 milers, done a couple of half marathons, but not crazy enough to do a full marathon. So yeah.
No. Which leads me actually very nicely into my first question. Just to set the stage and create a bit of background about where you are from and how you got into this whole public sphere of veterinary science, so to speak. So from what I've Googled, from what I've stalked you, you're on a run, you're out running, you are already one specialist, you're already an emergency critical care specialist, and you're busy specializing in toxicology, and you're running and you're thinking, shit, I wish somebody could be reading this to me while I'm running so I could be studying while I'm running. Is that accurate? Have I got the timeline right?
That's pretty spot on. So interestingly enough, when I first came up with the idea for VETgirl, it was actually in 2003 when I was studying for my emergency critical care boards. Mm-hmm. And at that time, there were no smartphones. I still had that yellow sports Walkman that most of you guys don't know.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking tape cassettes? No, we're talking CDs.
Yes,
CDs? Wow. Tape cassettes.
So, back then I just wanted someone to read me an emergency critical care article so I could go for a trail run with my dog. And I wasn't running very far, but I just needed some type of physical escape or break from studying. I was studying 12, 13 hours a day for my ECC boards. And again, technology didn't exist at that time. And when I was studying for my toxicology boards in 2011, 2012, came up with the idea again. I was like, I just want someone to read me a toxicology article. And that's when I actually reached out to Garrett Pachtinger, who's a fellow criticalist. He was actually a veterinary student at University of Pennsylvania when I was a senior resident, and reached out to him with the idea of VETgirl. And we based it off of my favorite podcast, which is called Money Girl or Grammar Girl. And it was based on the popularity of the term girl and also the growing prevalence of females within the veterinary field. And so, started it in 2012 and released it to the veterinary public in July of 2013. So we're only 6 years old, but that's how it started.
Wow, that's really cool. It's a classic solving a problem, producing something that solves a problem.
Scratch your own itch.
Yeah, scratch your own itch. Yeah, that's right.
Well, the crazy thing is I do believe the majority of people come up with incredible ideas. It's just a very small percentage that take it to the next level. And it's because we're too busy or because it's overwhelming. And I will say it was overwhelming to start a small business and start a limited liability corporation and to get it off the ground. But I always say, if you have a good idea, to borrow the logo from Nike, just do it.
So action, hey? Taking action.
Because you're right, though, that there's 100 good ideas every day. How did you put that into action? What's your first step? So you come back from the run and you go, I want to start this thing. What do you do? How do you kick it off?
So I should say, I came up with the idea in 2003, but didn't actually start the idea until 2011. So I let it simmer for a really long time. And it also came to fruition because now smartphone technology had, come out. And so it was more available. But back then, we started one of the first veterinary podcasts out there back in 2012, 2013. And it was, first of all, finding a good partner. And finding a good partner doesn't mean teaming up with your best friend or your BFF. It's finding the person that is going to match you the best and be the most solid partner. So making it legit, making sure you go through a lawyer, a small business lawyer, a small business accountant to officially start it up, to make sure that you are delegating appropriate responsibilities, to make sure that your fortes are in different areas. Mine was marketing, mine was industry connections, mine was public speaking, his was technology. And so it's teaming up with a person who may have opposite skills than you. And so we actually just started with an Excel spreadsheet where we came up with the top 50 things we needed to do. We had deadlines. We would assign them to each other. We held each other responsible. And thankfully, Garrett and I have very similar criticalist personalities where we're both pretty driven, pretty strong when it comes to attention to detail with getting things done. And so thankfully, because of the partnership, we were able to make it happen. And I truly believe there's always, fortuitous luck and timing. There was no online veterinary CE out there at that time. We call it continuing education or CE. And at that time, you had to attend a veterinary conference in order to meet your 20 hours of CE requirements a year. And it was shocking that there was just no online availability to be able to do that. So, definitely saw the need and was passionate about clinically relevant continuing education. And prior to me starting it, I was already lecturing quite a bit at a lot of the world-known veterinary conferences out there. And that was always my, quote, mojo. As a C student in vet school, I was really passionate about making sure that attendees knew the 2 to 3 things that was going to directly save an animal's life, not the pathophysiology behind the loop of Henle or, the detailed pathophys.
It's like the practical skills, as you said. That's kind of my thing as well. I like the things that people can grasp and still be engaged upon and engaged in, but then see the practical implementation of that in their day to day. Sometimes, like I'm not a specialist, and I wouldn't begin to imagine the level of study that is involved in going through that process. I've seen people come out the other end with mental breakdowns and different personalities and so forth. So it's an achievement, definitely. But I think there is a balance between the amount of pathophys that's required to get to grasp a concept in a practical sense, in a day-to-day implementation sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is still really important because it helps you figure out what drugs you're going to use. It helps you fine tune your differentials. It helps you understand the disease, which is really, really important. But I also think as classic workaholic veterinary professionals, sometimes your brain space is limited, right? So
to get back to your story, so now you've got did VETgirl start before you finished your second specialization, or did you wrap up your specialization and then start the business?
So I was already an emergency critical care specialist back in 2003, but I had not received my certification in toxicology until October of 2012. Okay. So we released it as a small business in July of 2012.
Okay. So you like being busy and doing lots of things at the same time.
Yeah, well, that's the benefit of doing emergency, and you guys know that you just have to learn how to multitask and go with it.
One of the biggest questions we get asked, and it's not really one that I can ever answer or add insight into, but is balancing things. Like having just did on a recent podcast with Nigel Marsh and his take on work-life balance, and kind of fits nicely with mine. I'd like to agree, and happy to say, but there was a paper that was released, and it was a big study done by a big institution in the States, and it surveyed a couple hundred new grads, and it was what are the things that they're looking for, and the thing that actually came up was work-life balance. And I personally don't like the term at all. But how do you balance the stuff that you do in terms of study? It's extensive study required in becoming a specialist, but also children or child, and then business in terms of the online presence and so forth. How does that work for you? How do you make that work?
Yeah, so I've heard a lot of people say, they don't like the saying work-life balance. And my general philosophy is it comes down to semantics. Like, I don't care what you call it, as long as you feel like you have good life mojo. And I will say for the first 10 years, 15 years, I did not have good work-life balance. And it's the classic veterinary personality where our Myers-Briggs personality is typically INTJ. So we're introverted, we're data-driven, we're anal retentive, we have high attention to detail. And with that perfectionism comes a lot of it comes with bad mojo. We don't take care of ourselves well. We work really, really hard. We're perfectionists. We think our medical records have to be 2 pages long, when in actuality, I really do aim for good work-life balance. And I will say that I feel like I've been really fortunate. As a board certified specialist, I've been able to build my career where I never, ever thought I would own 2 small businesses. I never thought I would be a nationally recognized speaker or internationally recognized. And so as a C student, I can say when I went back to my 15-year reunion at Cornell, one of my close friends at that time came up to me. She's like, I can't believe you're this bigwig speaker. You were totally a C student. And she meant it in a nice way. But, I never projected that for myself. But after working hard as a criticalist in the emergency room, experiencing compassion fatigue, experiencing burnout, I realized, you know what? This is not the way I want to practice. And I actually told myself on graduation day back over 20 years ago, back in 1997, that if I ever used physical force on an animal or I got frustrated, I was going to take a break. And so when it happened to me, I decided, you know what? I'm going to go into industry. And a lot of clinicians will poo-poo industry. They're like, oh, I would never go into industry. I want to, save puppies and kittens all day. When in actuality, the amazing thing about our profession is we can do anything. We could go into private practice. We could buy a practice. We could put our skill set at being a practice manager. We could go into industry. We could teach. We could work for the government. So we have nothing but options as veterinary professionals. And I really tell people and encourage them, if you're burnt out, find a different option. There's nothing but options. Take the time off. I went into industry for 5 years. I loved it. I built a lot of industry partnerships at that time. It was great work-life balance. I worked, 8 to 4. I had a lunch break. And so just realize as a veterinarian, you have nothing but options out there. And for me, because of that, I was able to build my own schedule. So I used to work 3 days a week from home, 2 days a week at the specialty clinic. After I had my child, I was able to work 2 days a week at the specialty clinic, be a stay-at-home mom 2 days a week, and frantically work on everything else 1 day a week. And what I've discovered, especially as a parent, is the sooner you learn to let go, the better your work-life balance. Because it really becomes the decision of what you want to prioritize. For me, it's my one and only kid. For me, it's my partnership with my husband. For me, it's finding balance so I can travel, so I can lecture. And my passion is still clinically relevant, practical, continuing education. So I've been able to prioritize it because it's a passion of mine. And I like to view all the blessings that I have in life. I want to enjoy the blessing of my one kid. I want to enjoy the blessing of still being able to practice, but also have the benefit of being a small business owner, because I'm a big believer that gives you the financial freedom to achieve work-life balance sooner. And the one last thing I would leave is I come up from a family of workaholics. Most veterinary professionals are workaholics, but I call it Workafrolic. And I call it that because if it brings you joy, just do it. If it doesn't bring you joy, triage it out of your life.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, meaning and so forth. If it's means something to you and makes you happy, then that's the key. You said there, let go. Justine, is that let go of what you think you should be good at, or what society thinks you should be good at, or as a mother, as a vet, etc., and things like that? So I don't know, what did you mean by the term let go there?
Yeah, I won't sing the Frozen song, let go. But I will say the sooner you learn to let go, personally, the better your mental health. You do not have to write a SOAP or a 2-page medical record. I'm a firm believer you should dot all your I's, you should cross all your T's, you should make sure your medical records are appropriate, but you shouldn't be staying 4 to 6 hours after your shift, making sure that they're perfect. You definitely want to, we have a saying, CYA, cover your butt when it comes to medical records, but all my medical records meet the Board of Veterinary Medicine requirements, but I don't write 2-page discharges. I don't write 2-page SOAPs. And the sooner you learn to let go of your perfectionism, the better your quality of life. You cannot waste the mental energy, or shouldn't waste the mental energy beating yourself up because you didn't have the perfect medical record, or you didn't prepare the perfect meal, or your house is not perfectly clean. If you look at my house, there's laundry, there's big hairballs in the corner. I vacuum, once or twice a month, but it's not perfect. And nobody cares. There's no harm. And so, I mean, by letting go of perfectionism, where you're going to beat yourself up, when in actuality, ask yourself, does this really make a difference? Does this spark joy, or is something bad going to happen if I leave my hairballs in the corner of my house? No, it's okay to not be too hard on ourselves.
There's a concept that I really like, and it's around looking at the things that you do, breaking them down, and then identifying whether or not it's something you really need to do or something you can outsource to someone else. Is there something you're doing that is actually better done by someone else? As you talked about before, marketing was your thing, and Garrett's was technology, but also the other thing was really focusing on what your key quality output is. If you're going to do something as your profession with your skills, what would that key output be that would provide a contribution and an act of service that tick meanings for you? Some people actually don't really know what that is. They don't really think about that. Sounds like as if you've kind of figured that out.
Well, not without reading a lot of self-help books. One of my favorite books is actually The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And a lot of that book does not pertain to veterinary medicine. We physically have to be in a clinic for X hours a day, so we can't be in a clinic setting 4 hours a week. But there are some really important takeaways from that book. And one of them is, look at your hourly rate. If your hourly rate, say, is, I'll just give a low rate, $50 US an hour, whatever's less than $50 an hour, don't do it. If it doesn't spark joy for you to mow your lawn or to pick up dog poop or to rake the leaves, and it's going to cost a neighborhood kid down the street a quarter of your hourly rate, let it go. Let someone else do it. And so I agree with you. The more efficient you can become as a partner, spouse, veterinarian, parent, the better your quality of life, because we just don't have time to do all of it. So I totally agree with you. Outsource what you can. If it's below your hourly rate, triage it out of your life.
So I think an issue in our profession, or at least what people will raise as an issue, is the hourly rate thing. I think for many vets trying to build the lives that they want to live, having a balanced life, is to some degree limited by that hourly rate, where they go, well, if I want to pay the bills, I need to do the 50-hour week. Otherwise I'm not going to be able to cover my rent or my mortgage or anything. Have you got any thoughts on that? Is it something you've struggled with? I mean, you studied for a long time. I imagine while you're studying, you're not raking in the big dollars. How do you make it work? What do you think about this?
That's an excellent question. I will say that the student debt load in North America, or I should say specifically the United States, is massive. Right now, your average veterinary student is graduating with approximately $160,000 US. So the equivalent of a cheap house in the United States. When I graduated over 20 years ago from Cornell, I had $100,000 in student debt. So approximately 75,000 euro. And to me, it really stressed me out. And I was able to pay that off in 11 years. And that was with a 1-year internship and a 4-year emergency critical care residency. So I will say, I'm a big believer that the longer you can live like a broke veterinary student, the sooner you can pay off your student debt load, the better your work-life balance. Because then you can say, you know what? I don't want to work 80 hours a week. There is this great chart that is floating around on the internet. Do you want to work 40 hours a week for 40,000? Do you want to work 80,000? Do you want to work 80 hours a week for 80,000? And for me, time is money. I don't want to work and kill myself working 80 hours a week to make 80,000 when I would rather have paid off my student debt load as soon as possible. In the United States, there's a lot of financing options for those loans, but my philosophy is the sooner you can get that big boulder of student debt off your shoulder, the better your quality of life. So really trying to be frugal. Now, I know that contradicts what I just said, where I said, if it's less than your hourly rate, triage it away. If you can live for the first couple of years as frugally as you can as a veterinarian, the sooner you can pay off your debt. Yes, you'll have to work harder in the beginning, but then it gives you the financial freedom to be able to have better quality of life and triage things out of your life that aren't important to you.
I'm a big believer of outsourcing things. I really like the idea of empowering other people to take over the tasks that you don't like doing. And it's in my mind is succession planning. Really, if I don't train or mentor the veterinarians of the future to do what I'm able to do, then I'll always be stuck doing those kind of things. It gets a bit scary when you succession plan yourself out of a role,
Yes, that's true.
which is rapidly occurring. But having said that, it creates the space for anything to occur. But if you are the kind of person like you, where you really do value the time, and it's not just time, but it's value the headspace that comes out of outsourcing something. Like shoveling poop, it may not actually be an issue, but then you spend a week thinking about the fact that you got to shovel poop, and then that's 15 times a day. You consider that, then you consider actually the time you spend doing it. So what's that? That's an hour. You could be an hour and a half of your mental capacity in space and time considering shoveling poop. You're actually paying more than actually how much it would cost to get someone to do it in the first place. So,
and I agree. And that's the hard thing is we as veterinary professionals oftentimes don't think of our lives as hourly rates. And so I actually utilize, one of my life hacks is I utilize Google Calendar quite a bit. And I have multiple shared calendars with my business partner versus my spouse versus my family, my immediate family. I business travel so much, they wouldn't know where I am otherwise. But I also put mundane tasks on there that I don't have the headspace for. I don't remember when my quarterly taxes are due. I don't remember when my property taxes are due. I can't remember when X, Y, and Z it needs to be done. So I just automatically free up the headspace, put it on Google Calendar, automate as much of my life as I can. Since we're talking about poop, I will say I have one dog, one cat. And one of my big splurges was getting an automatic kitty litter robot, which is an automatic kitty litter box. It's super expensive.
It rolls.
Yes. Yeah. $600 US. It rolls. It cleans completely 7 minutes after a cat leaves the litter box. But for me, I'm very nose or smell sensitive. And so one big stressor in my life was whenever my cat defecated in the box, I had to like run downstairs and scoop. It was a waste of my time. When I came back from a business trip, the first thing I had to do was scoop the litter box.
You walk in through the door, you could smell it. Like, no.
Yes. And so for me, I actually utilize technology. So buying something like an automatic litter robot. So I only have to empty the charcoal litter filter and the box every 10 days. Frees up headspace, frees up, physical labor. I put it on my Google Calendar every 10 days, empty the litter robot, done.
Is that when you watch your YouTube videos, there's this contraption on the desk next to you? Is that thing? Or what is it? It looks like a giant washing machine or what is that?
Yes.
On the desk.
It's not on the desk, but it's in my basement. So it looks like this big alien egg. The footprint of it is actually the size of a standard litter box. But I have it below my basement stairs. And oh man, it is a game changer for me. So one of the technology things that I absolutely love that made my life better.
We talk a lot of shit on this podcast, but it's the first time we've actually talked about
well, we use this.
I see it all the
time. There will be people out there who haven't considered the value of their time.
I did not know about the cat litter robot. That's pretty spectacular.
Ellie Lester, one of our specialists here in Brisbane, purchased one of those, and she thinks it's the bomb. And we were over there having a party once, and then we were just like waiting for the cat to get pooped because we wanted to see how it would work. But Justine, sorry to bring this back, but you talked about industry, going into industry. What did you do in industry?
Yeah.
So when I left University of Minnesota, I was assistant professor in emergency there, and I taught for 5 years at the veterinary school. And we had a really strict non-compete. So because of my partner living in Minnesota, I had to stay in the state of Minnesota, but I couldn't practice within a certain area. And so geographically, I was very limited in where I could practice. So I actually had to go into industry if I wanted to stay in Minnesota. So I actually was the associate director of a human and animal poison control center. And so that was a natural fit because most of the time, the clinicians that are seeing the poisoning cases are usually emergency. And so between being an emergency critical care specialist and being in toxicology, that's where it was a natural fit for me to become boarded in toxicology. And so I headed an animal poison control center for 5 years. And then after that time, decided to branch out on my own. So it was a great break industry wise because it gave me a lot of options. It taught me a lot about toxicology. It taught me a lot about HR, people leadership skills, management skills. And so a lot of great opportunities in the industry. So I always tell people, again, don't rule out your options. You can always work in industry. It's a fantastic way of conquering your compassion fatigue and burnout, and just as a break.
I've got quite a few friends who are in industry, and there is this, I don't know if it's actually real anymore, but when I first graduated, if you transitioned out of primary practice into industry, it was considered as you were leaving
it was a stigma.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But you know, like I've got numerous friends who and just like what you said, they've totally changed their take on the career, and then they've got now business opportunities and also in career advancement opportunities within corporations that have impacts on, you know, more people than probably we would see as veterinarians in a day, you know, over a year. They impact larger groups of people.
I agree. It also is great mental health. I remember within my first week of starting my industry job, I called my criticalist mate and I called her. I was like, hey, what are you doing? She's like, I'm really busy. I'm about to run with the students. What's up? And I said, I just want to let you know I'm sitting at a desk drinking tea. And she's like, shut up. Click. So it does give you good work-life balance.
It's a big step though. And I considered it at a stage for about just over a decade ago. I seriously considered, as you say, you just get a bit tired of the clinical thing. I couldn't do it. I think I was too worried that I'd miss the clinical side. I think what do they call it? Institutionalized. What's the?
Or you walk about with a straight jacket like that or something.
I think I've got Stockholm syndrome. I have Stockholm when it comes to clinical vet practice.
I do tell people, you know, people are worried they're going to forget all their medicine, and it is truly like riding a bike. You know, you take a couple of years off, it's still going to be in the back of your brain. It might take a little bit, but it's, you know, most of it's innate for us to be a clinician.
I'd like to think that I could go back in general practice and still be able to pull out a multi-rooted tooth. So, but I don't know now.
Let it go. Let it go. I wouldn't be able to do it.
One of the actual most stressful things I was at a Hills recent grad retreat, and it was a really powerful experience. There were some veterinarians who were only 3 years out. And I asked the group of them, how many of you are actually considering leaving this profession? And like a good 15% of them put their hand up. But they asked us questions like, you know, what causes you stress now? And I'm like, oh, give me a splenectomy, a GDV, a thoracotomy, give me anything like that, enterotomy, whatever. Give me a spay. Oh my God. I get sweaty hands, and like the last kitten spay I did, I cut too high up above the umbilicus, not below, turned it to an X-lap. All of a sudden there were intestines everywhere. And I was struggling to find the actual, the uterus in amongst the intestines. And that was about 45 minutes spay. And I was never again. We created partnerships with local veterinarians now where like, if any of our staff have to have their pets desexed, it's like,
oh, that's great. They do it there.
Oh, that brings me to a nice question. What do you struggle with, Justine? What are your, so you sound like you've got things pretty well sorted out. What currently in the life of Justine Lee, what are your biggest challenges? Well, professionally, personally, where
It's
do you
it's
struggle?
definitely still work-life balance. I mean, I know I talk about it a lot. It is a high priority for me, but I definitely struggle with it. I will say that I really try to make sure that my partner and I have good quality time. So I don't want to be on the laptop each night. So I really try to limit it to once to twice a week at most, just so we have time to connect. I also make sure to prioritize it by paying for a babysitter to come so we can make sure that we have adult time, buying puzzles so we're not just sitting in front of the tube, wasting our brain away and actually talking. So, it's definitely still a struggle. Any veterinary professional is always going to struggle with that balance over time. And so don't get me wrong, I don't have it mastered at all. So between trying to work on that, and I would say, I'm with as much business travel as I have, I'm often only in the clinic 1 day a week now. And so it's a matter of me doing an enucleation every couple of years where I'm like, okay, yeah, I could do this. Or me doing a bone marrow every 10 years where I'm like, okay, I got to relearn how to do this. So I definitely still find that struggle as a specialist. But in general, still working on work-life balance, mental health, physical health, and just trying to be a really good parent and partner.
Well, one of our guests. Sorry, Gerard, I want to jump in, but that fits nicely in with what we're talking about. One of our guests sent us an email once and said she had a question which I think was a very pertinent one, and I don't know if you had this situation at all. I don't know when you met your other half during this career trajectory of yours. She asked us how do you handle a situation where you early on in your career you have these aspirations to be super vet or specialist or something like that, but your partner has similar career aspirations, and they might be an engineer or a doctor, and you come up with situations where there has to be decisions made, compromise made as to who sacrifices what. And probably, although it shouldn't be, but it probably is still the case that in many instances it sort of defaults to the female partner to say, well, I'll take a step back and you focus on your career. I know, but probably less and less so, but I think it still is a concern for especially for all the female veterinarians. Is it something that you struggled with, or did you do all your hard work before you before you met your partner?
So that's a great question. I would say, if I was going to say an answer straight out, I would say whoever's going to make more money, let them proceed with their career.
Yeah.
I'm a late bloomer, so I did not meet my husband until I was 38, and we didn't get married till 40. So I was very well established in my career at that point. He knew I was business traveling a lot. He knew that was a big priority for me. And I will say, with my previous partner, prior to my husband, who I was with for a very long time, we had made the decision we were not going to have children. And so it wasn't until I married my husband that we decided to go down that journey. So I would say it was a little bit different for me. I was already well established. Ultimately, you want to find a spouse or a partner that's very supportive of you, but you're also equally supportive of that partner. And it's just a matter of strong communication skills, working together to figure out what your long-term plan is. But I will also throw in the wrench and say, I believe whether or not you call it the universe, God's will, karma, whatever you want to call it, life is often about timing. And I think, as Pasteur said, chance favors a prepared mind. So we want to be prepared, but we also have to be aware life's going to throw us singers and we just have to roll with it. I feel very fortunate in that I wouldn't have been able to start my small businesses without my husband, because in America, we don't have government healthcare or universal healthcare. And so I wouldn't have been able to move to part-time to build my small businesses without the support of my husband, because I needed health insurance. And that's different across the country, across the world. But for me, that was a big factor. I was too scared to drop to part-time as a result. So, obviously I don't have the answers for that, but I would say work with your partner and figure out what your ultimate goals are. For females, the biggest struggle that I found was with family planning. And with family planning, there is no perfect time for you to start having children. It's not when you're in vet school, during your internship, during your residency, when you're about to buy a practice, when you just start as an associate. There's never a perfect time. But I wrote a blog on why you should stop your veterinary career now to have kids. And I always tell people, we will often get trolls when I post this blog. If you don't want to have children, that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. With my previous partner, we weren't going to have any children. And if you don't want to have children, that's totally fine. But I do think it's important, regardless of what career goal you or your partner want, is to have that crucial conversation, especially as you approach your early 30s. Mm-hmm. Because most people think, as veterinary scientists, we all took thermogenology. We understand how the LH, FSH, process works. We just think if we work harder, we can get pregnant. Well, not true with family planning and age. And most people don't realize, once you're over 42, the chances, even with in vitro fertilization, to a live birth with IVF is only about 2.5%. And I didn't realize that until we struggled with infertility and losses and failed IVF. And, as scientists, we just think, oh, well, we see old 40-year-old women with, twins all the time. And it turns out it's actually from egg donors. It's not from the mom's actual eggs, which is totally okay if that's an option that you want. But I do think it's important, because of timing and age, you do have that crucial conversation if that's something you're even thinking about considering.
That's really interesting.
So would you have done, knowing what you know, would you have done things differently?
Totally.
Yeah.
That's a great question. And again, full disclosure, wasn't planning on having kids before I met my husband. And I was the world's best aunt. Like, I loved my nieces and nephews. But if I could do it all over again, I would have had 5. Like, I love it that much. I love every single stage. So yes, I would have had more kids. And, feel super blessed to have James, who's our one and only. But, we also had him when we're 43. We're going to be retired when he graduates high school. So, if I could do it all over again, I would have started earlier. But again, life's all about timing. Sometimes you can't change it.
Yeah. It's interesting how, I think it's more prevalent in the vet world, maybe, or maybe it's just because most of my social circle are vet related. But how many, my wife's a vet as well, by the way. We met at vet school. And how many of her group of friends and my female vet friends were, no kids, and then have kids later on, and then absolutely love it. And I look at them and I go, where did you come from? You're a completely different person. This is where
it's the oxytocin for playing with puppies.
I've got a question, and I'm quite interested to see what your thoughts are on this. You've got a very large social media following, and what are your thoughts there around the responsibility that entails? Because you're a person of influence and you're a thought provoker and a teacher, right? People start to sort of trust and take what you say into account because of the credibility you've created over time. But the responsibility that's associated with that kind of, how would you say, gift and burden at the same time?
Well, you said it, you're spot on. It's a gift and burden. I will say we never thought our social media would grow as fast as it did. We paid $250 US in Facebook ads to get us up to 1,000 fans. And ever since then, it's gone viral on its own. We've never paid anything for Instagram. And it is a double-edged sword. I think the biggest frustration is when I graduated vet school in 97, there was no social media. There were no online reviews, and it was a totally different world. So if you asked me, would I be, this popular, quote unquote, on social media, I never would have guessed it. It is frustrating at times because I'm a firm believer that veterinary medicine is very relational. In the United States, it's a very small world, and you don't want to burn your bridges. We're all one big family. And what I've been seeing lately is a lot of negativity, trolls. I've seen a lot of negative comments. I've seen a lot of judgment, and I hate it. In fact, most of the time, I don't even moderate my comments because we can't. There's thousands of comments on there. And so it is frustrating because I oftentimes am subjected to cyberbullying, but I just ignore it. I posted a video on how to place an IV catheter for educational purposes and had some comments saying, you drag the stylet through the hair. That's totally not sterile. Really? You don't think as a double board certified specialist, I'd had to put an IV catheter in? Or the other day, I posted a video of me helping an intern doing a thoracocentesis on a cat and got a lot of judgment for not having sterile gloves. And I had to refute back saying, dude, back off. We're still using sterile technique. And it's totally possible to do without sterile gloves. And this is a life-saving procedure, but trust me, I know what I'm doing. And so to see so much judgment really makes me dismayed about our veterinary field. With the prevalence of suicide ideation, with the prevalence of cyberbullying, a lot of people hide behind the screen because they're not going to meet me in person and say it to my face. Mm-hmm. So it is really, really frustrating. And honestly, my philosophy is don't throw pearls to the pigs. I don't respond to negative comments most of the time unless it's medically egregious, because most of the time society will respond. It is really frustrating though. And I will say that the majority of the time I just let it go. And you probably find the same thing because you have a huge social media following also, right? So how do you handle it?
Oh, you know what it is now, because it used to hit me hard, totally. And I used to actually consider, no matter how many, it's the same thing, right? You get a gazillion thanks and so forth from your clients, and then one complaint comes through, hits you, and you go, oh shit, I shouldn't be a vet, I'm shit, or whatever. Same with social media. You get a comment on there, which kind of makes you rethink your value and your knowledge. But then you put that in perspective. So the first thing is always put it into perspective. Second thing is, like, I just thank them now. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing it to my attention. I'll consider that next time.
You nice Australians. I love it.
But it was like, so now I kill them with love, and there's always learning somewhere, but that was the quickest release for me of my tension, was just going, thank you, and be grateful, despite the fact that I may not feel that right now. But it starts the process. But the thing that I posted a video of placing an arterial catheter without wearing gloves. And I was like, dude, if you can place an arterial catheter wearing gloves and feel it all through that rubber and stuff, you're a magician. You know, you're better than me. So yeah. Like, some people are good at that stuff, but you know, I need to be able to feel it. But the one thing that I would say that I am very mindful of, and I must say that I've been guilty of in the past, is sort of the attack, not really the attack, but the kind of the comments and the memes that come up, which kind of devalue the very people that we're trying to help and serve, which, like, and there was one the other day, and it was something like, owner drives up in a BMW 4-wheel drive and then can't afford the consultation fee, right? And you're like, well, you have no idea what's going on in the background of that person, right? He could have just gone bankrupt a week ago, and you know, now he's in the process of selling his car, you know. But it's the only thing that I don't really get engaged in now, and actually feel a bit of ashamed in terms of the things that really capture quite a lot of engagement are the things that actually downplay or somewhat degrade our clients. I don't know.
Yeah, I do agree. And it is really frustrating. And I do say, remember the reason why you wanted to become a veterinarian or a veterinary nurse. It was to help save animals. And with that comes a pet owner. And I will say, one of my favorite videos that I really encourage people to find online is Brene Brown's video on empathy versus sympathy. And you're spot on when you say we don't know other people's perspective. I am not Myers-Briggs wise, personality wise. I am not strong in the empathy department until it happens to me. I didn't understand infertility until it happened to me. I didn't understand what it was like for a pet owner to hear from an emergency specialist being on the other side of the table when you've never met that person before, to hear the words, your dog has cancer. And it rocked my world when my own pit bull had cancer. And so I really try to have that same philosophy. I've had pet owners who come in a really expensive $100,000 car who say, I can't afford that. And you just have to work with them. The less judgment we have, and that was, again, one of my biggest frustrations with social media, is all the hate and judgment. If there's one thing that I could really just leave with the audience, is please stop being so judgmental, because down the line, it's going to come back and bite you, right? The less judgmental we are, I mean, the quality of medicine throughout the world has dramatically improved, but we always have something to learn. And I remember when I had that owner come in with that $100,000 car, he actually said to me, I got in a really bad car accident a month ago. I didn't have health insurance, and now I'm bankrupt. And you just have no idea what that person's situation is. I once had an owner bring in 6 almost dead parvo puppies. They were obviously sick for days to weeks, but who knows what was going on in their life. And you know what? At least they brought them in. They could have shot them with a gun at home, right? They could have drowned them. And so stepping back to still have that compassion and not be judgmental, because we all see things from different perspectives, whether or not it's as a single person. I was single for 40 years. I oftentimes had to back up all my colleagues who had to leave at 4:30 to go pick up their kids, to bring them to soccer. And I oftentimes was resentful. I'd have to stay with the residents or the interns till 11, p.m. venting that case, or putting it on the respirator. When now as a parent, I get it. So let's all try to be more supportive of each other, especially because we have undue stress from so many factors, from work-life balance, from financial stress, from debt to income ratio, from student debt to pet owner demand. So we really all need to just let it go and cut each other a break.
No, I do like what you're saying there about being less judgmental, because a lot of the angst and anxiety and the stress actually comes as a result of judging, like the people, like, and I see it, sometimes it's the stress that like my colleagues might experience because of the stress that they feel associated with a case or associated with a situation. It's like, well, dude, you're choosing to actually think that way. You're choosing to judge that way. And that's only being detrimental to you. It's actually not even helping the situation. You're not even thinking about solutions. You're not even thinking about how to move forward the situation. You're still stuck in the judgment. But like that, what you said there really solidified or put it all together in a sense, and put it down to one word, and that is essentially judgment. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
It's hard because I remember the first time I made a fatal mistake, and we've all had those situations where we've killed a patient by accident. And I remember calling my old surgery mentor at Cornell crying. I was really devastated. I was beating myself up over it. And I still remember his exact words: "This is the way you're going to learn in veterinary medicine. Just don't make the same mistake twice." So why are we judging our colleagues when we probably made a similar mistake 5, 10, 15 years ago? And again, I oftentimes will have referring vets who call before they refer something and say, "I'm really sorry if I did X, Y, and Z." I'm like, who cares? Just send it in. Like, you got to work with what you can. I never bestow judgment, because you have no idea if their hands were tied, if they didn't have staff to help them. So most of the time my philosophy is, if you're having success with practicing the way you are, great, keep on doing it. But we all have things to learn, but let's judge each other less, especially on social media.
Yeah, the client bashing game that you allude to, Gerardo. I played that game for a long time in my career. It's almost like you think it makes you feel better. So you're having a stressful day, and then people come in and they make your day more stressful by the things that they did differently to how you would like it to do. So you think you're going to feel better by mouthing off on them or bitching about it to your nurses. It took me a long time to learn that by having your approach, what you're talking about, Justine, about having more empathy and not jumping to conclusions, is not for that client's benefit. You're not being nice to the client just to be nice to the client. It's really for your own benefit. It is. You are by doing that bashing and you're just poisoning yourself really, and ruining your own day even further. So presume the best, and half the time people will actually prove you right, that they actually aren't as horrible as you've decided that they are. And even if they are as horrible, then at least you haven't ruined your own day by just perpetuating it and choosing that your own attitude with that.
Yeah, and I do think that's really important. Classic example, I remember when I used to have a mom come into the emergency room with 3 screaming kids, and I'd be like, oh, now it's a mom. Do you think she actually wanted to bring her 3 kids? No, absolutely not. Now I get it, right? So let's have the perspective. And I really, you said it spot on when you said, you're poisoning yourself. And as a toxicologist, yeah, I would say the more positive we can be, it really does help just our mental state when we have a change in perspective. I'm grateful this pet owner even brought these dying parvo puppies in, right? So just changing your perspective a little bit to turn it into a positive way. Remembering what I like to have a high-low of the day, what made me happy, what brought me joy, what made me sad. Having a gratitude journal. I've journaled every single day from my first year of undergrad back in 1990. And it's just a couple of sentences, but reshaping our brain just so we can make sure that we are more loving, more compassionate, more empathetic, and we remember the reason why we wanted to become a veterinary professional to begin with.
Perfect. I couldn't agree more. Gerardo?
You go, and if I've got something better, Hubert, I will ask that instead.
Well, Justine, have you got anything in particular that you'd like to talk about that we haven't talked about, anything you feel strongly about?
No, I would just say thank you for what you guys are doing. I think the more that we can increase conversations about supporting our fellow colleagues, lifting each other up, being supportive, and having crucial conversations that we don't learn in textbooks, I think it brings up our profession more.
Awesome. Thank you. I am going to ask you a couple of quick questions. You say that you have your own podcast, and you said you listen to a lot of podcasts. Have you got any favorites? Any podcasts that I should add to the list?
Sure. So some of my favorite podcasts are just brief news ones. So NPR, a couple of ones that will summarize the news for me in 5 minutes. One of my favorite podcasts, I listen to a lot of parenting podcasts too. One of my favorite podcasts is The White Coat Investor, which is a financial podcast by a human emergency physician about how to be financially savvy, which I think is really important.
Cool.
How to get rid of your debt load. My other favorite one is The Happier Project, which is by Gretchen Rubin, about how to be happy, so talks about gratitude, little steps that we can take, a couple of life hacks that I really enjoy. So those are probably my favorite that I listen to.
Any of the parenting ones that you like in particular? Because I haven't found any parenting ones that I love yet. I've tried.
So I listen to a couple of different parenting ones. One of them is Mighty Mommy, which is in the same genre of Money Girl, Grammar Girl. Another one of my favorite ones is, I just got to scroll and find it.
I think you're looking for the VETgirl is the one you're looking
No.
for.
One of my favorite parenting podcasts is by Jamie Glowacki, I think that's her last name. It's about how to have a toddler. And just to warn you, it's a really long title of a podcast and it has the F word in it. But it's very, very real life. One of my other favorite podcasts is actually Sawbones, which is by a human medical doctor and her comedian husband. And it talks about a lot of the history behind human medicine, which I really enjoy.
Cool.
I also really enjoy a podcast that is actually, I believe, based out of Australia called Straight and Curly. It's just sort of life hacks aimed towards women. And I love This American Life. Another fun podcast that a lot of scientists would like is This Podcast Will Kill You. It's by 2 epidemiologists. And they talk about rabies, or they talk about influenza. They talk about a lot of the science behind it. So I really enjoy that one. And my all-time favorite parenting one is Time to Parent.
Time to Parent.
This is one by Julie Morgenstern. Cool. And I will say most people will say I'm a very efficient veterinarian, which I learned during my internship. And it's about how to be an efficient parent. Oh. So it's how to have time for your child, have quality time, but also how to make sure you take care of yourself too.
Wow. Spectacular.
Nice.
And have we got time for the last question? we always finish off with this one. You're at a conference, which easy enough to imagine for you, and you've got all the world's veterinary new graduates with you, and you have a couple of minutes to give them one bit of advice. What's your one bit of advice to the recent graduates of the world?
Honestly, what I just told you guys, what we've discussed over the past hour is it would be that the vet world is very small and very relational, and to be kind to your colleagues and to support each other and lift each other up. The second thing I would say is learn to be an efficient veterinarian. The more efficient you are, the better your quality of life, because you're not stuck at the hospital for 2 hours after your shift doing medical records. And those are my two favorite life hacks for new veterinary graduates.
I like that. That's really good. Efficiency. Wow.
Even
it's time.
Even your tips are efficient. I love it.
Well, we do that. The overnight doctor is always, chatting with me for hours. A lot of people are slow to enter the medical record, so they'll write it on a paper clipboard and then type it into the electronic medical record later, or they're just standing around waiting for that cat to be unblocked or to be sedated. And I always say, use that time, whip out your email, drink some water, take a bathroom break, document a client communication, finish your medical records. And Gerardo knows, because like when you're in the emergency room, something's triaged back. I do my full physical exam at that time while I'm waiting for the paperwork to come back. I've already typed my physical exam. I've started my history. I've started my treatment sheet. So the more efficient you are, the better your quality of life.
Love it.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
We'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much again, Justine, for your time. I think this will be a huge one. I think our listeners will love it. I know most of them listen to you already. So
thank you so much. I'm really honored to be on your podcast, and really appreciate you guys reaching out.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
A criticalist.
Let's say criticalist. Did I?
Something like that.
Okay, I'll say it again. Criticalist. Yeah.